Thanks so much. Hey everybody, welcome to our first special event of the Printiverse. And it is quite poignant that the first special event and our first real industry interview is with Dr. Joe. Some people like to call him Dr. Doom. I actually like that name. I wish they would call me Deborah Doom. I can make a theme out of that. Of course, I became the alien, yeah. But Dr. Joe. First of all, something that a lot of people don't know about you or me is that we're actually secret Skype buddies.
That's correct.
Dr. Joe is a random Skype drive-byer. Every once in a while, I'll just get this crazy Skype from Dr. Joe, and it sets off about an hour-long random conversation about something. And the last one was a very poignant discussion about where your hairstyle is new and what kind of conditioner were you using.
Yes.
You know, the things that people want to know about Dr. Joe.
You were always saying when you're interviewed, people ask you where your hair gets done.
Right. Is this mic's not on?
Nope.
Okay, now it's on.
Oh my gosh,
okay.
Now it's on.
Yeah.
People are always asking her when they interview her about where her hair gets done. No one asks me.
No.
So to test it out, I parted my hair on the other side this morning.
Yes.
And I used a different conditioner.
I think
Does
it looks.
show? I thought so.
It looks lovely. So again, hey Joanne, thanks so much for your support of the Printiverse and for certainly for making time to speak with us, because I know your time is limited at the show.
That's what the judge ordered that I should do.
Oh my God, this could be print community service. I love that. Don't give me ideas.
No,
I go off on them.
No.
Okay, so for anybody who might not know, who is Dr. Joe and what do you do and who do you do it for? Big question.
Big question. Most people know me from whattheythink.com, where I've written for 15 years now. I told them I was only doing it 1 year and that's it. And then somehow I forgot. But prior to that, I had a market research business called TrendWatch. Some of you may remember that during the internet heyday. We were one of the first online sellers of market research about our industry. And my consulting practice started in 1987, mainly working for vendors when I graduated from NYU's doctoral program in graphic communications, and then went in the next day to quit my job. But that day was April Fool's Day.
Ah.
And you know me just a little bit now, but you can tell that if I tried to quit on April Fool's Day, it could take a long time. So I went to my boss's, at that time, it was secretary. Today it would be CEO. And you like that?
Yeah, I do.
And said, Barbara,
what are we looking at?
I don't know what we're looking at, but they might have money. So I said, I need to talk to this person tomorrow. She said, no, he's traveling tomorrow. You have to speak with him today. I said, but today is April Fool's Day. He's not going to believe what I tell him. It took me a half an hour to quit my job. No matter what I put in writing. So,
well,
but as I tell people, I've had 30 years of gainful unemployment as a consultant in the printing industry.
So as Prince...
I'm trying to use up the time.
No, we have plenty of time.
Oh, okay.
As Print's leading physician, what is your diagnosis for the print industry in the next 5 years? And most importantly, where are the untapped opportunities? And I say that's most important because I'm assuming that there's people in this booth with a shopping list or people in this booth who are coming to discover something. Okay. And I want to set these people and the people watching at home on a viable mission for their next 5 years.
Okay. It's fairly simple. If it's a mainstream product that's been around for a long time, it's in trouble. Okay? So anything that's a specialty, that's usually it's going to end up being digital printing. In some cases, it will end up being a finishing in some way of doing some service or additional task to digital printing. But fine, those are all process things. Everybody knows to go around the show looking for digital printing. But what's the value of that to a customer? the more you understand what people are trying to do from a communication strategy perspective, the better off you're going to be. It's not just about how fast certain kinds of equipment are. It's what you do with it. It's the data that's involved in that. More and more printers have told me they never expected to have programmers on staff, and they'll tell me, "Gosh, we went from none, now we have 5." I mean, it's an amazing thing that's happened. The direct mail thing, you know, everybody thinks that's okay, but be careful of the direct mail, because the Postal Service is pricing themselves out of the market. So we're always fighting against the Postal Service, so we have to find ways to reach target audiences at a best cost perspective, but do something unique and special with them. So any customization, personalization, changes in frequency, pulling printing into the content marketing strategy that organizations have. How many of you know what content marketing is? And you're afraid to say because there might be competitors in the room, you don't want them to know, right? Is that the, all right. Really get involved in content marketing, get involved in marketing automation, start to understand these things from the customer's perspective, and then you'll begin to see where some of the opportunities are. For the past few years, wide format has been a marvelous opportunity for everyone. And of course, what does that mean? Technology is going to come and create a disruption there. That disruption's already started. Digital signage. I had a great story that I attached, that I mentioned in one of my columns about a printing company that ended up doing the directories, the screen directories for Mall of America. Who would have thought a printing company would be involved in that kind of stuff?
Oh my God, that must have been a huge job too.
Yes, because we know how big
Mall
of America is, because we like to go to Camp Snoopy, right? So nobody knows what Camp Snoopy is. Go to Mall of America, you'll find out. But digital signage may be the next opportunity that adds on to your wide format business. So look for where the new technologies are coming from. Think about what can change because of it, and what's already happening. You already have clues as to those kinds of things.
So are you in the printers should become marketing service providers camp, or are you in the printers should become the best printers that they could possibly be camp?
There are hundreds of ways of doing well in this market, and not everybody's cut out to be a marketing service provider, and not everybody's cut out to be a printer. I mean, it's
true.
It's a strategy.
It's true.
It depends. What are your relationships in the marketplace? What are the skills that you have? What are the skills that you might have? But think of it from the customer perspective. Figure out not what they want to buy. Figure out what are their problems. What are their objectives? That's where all of that should start. But so the more you immerse yourself in those kinds of questions, the better off you are. I'm going to go into a long anecdote. Like I haven't already, right? When I moved to Wake Forest, North Carolina, which everybody thinks that the university is at, but we sell T-shirts in Wake Forest that say Wake Forest, North Carolina, where the university used to be. All right, so that's a big seller in town. But as part of that move 5 years ago, I got involved with the American Marketing Association chapter in the Triangle. That's the area that we live, which is the #1 chapter in the United States. And it's won it might be 3 years in a row that it's won. You don't think of Raleigh, North Carolina winning a marketing award like that. And I went to the meetings. I never saw any printers there except for two very, very nice people that get involved in the board. They have a leg up on their competitors because of that. But as I sit at the tables and talk to them, talk to the attendees at these luncheons. Now this is an association in a mid-sized city that gets 150 people once a month to its luncheons, where they're talking about marketing and marketing strategy, and I will only find those two same printers there every time. And as I talk to people at the lunch table about what they're doing, nobody really has a sense of how to use print or even why to use print. And it's creepy to me.
Yeah.
I was having a discussion with a creative director in a digital media agency, and I said, well, you know, what are you involved in? He's describing his projects, and he says, I'd love to get into print, but print is intimidating. And if you go into whattheythink.com and put in print is intimidating, you will find my column about that. And why did he say it was intimidating? Because it had to be locked down. They're not used to this.
Right.
They're used to putting something up online, and if it's not working, they change it within minutes or within hours of finding that out. They're so keyed into the analytics, but they're not seeing certain opportunities they have to tie in with those things, and that's for us to help them explore. So, and literally, it is an exploration that they have to do, because are you going to ask me the question whether or not print is dead?
Never.
Good.
Because I think it's the stupidest question I've
It
ever
is
heard.
a stupid question. And here's the reason it's stupid.
Can I just say, I think anyone who asks that question already knows that they are dead and irrelevant. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking that question.
Exactly. Are you going to start writing my column now, right?
I could. Haven't I been?
But as I talk to these young communications executives, many of whom are in the VP level, most of whom are in managers or product managers or senior positions in communications, it's very clear, print is a baby. It's not at the end of its lifespan. It's a baby to them because they don't know about it. And they need to have ways of experimenting with it and trying it out. But we go to them with the assumption that we're going to be able to sell them the same kind of mainstream stuff like we do always. And even that's a problem for us, because that generation gap of people who grew up with print selling to people who do not have a personal understanding in the use of print, those two generations will never, ever talk. And that's a serious problem for us, especially in uncovering new applications.
Right. So we're going to talk about your book in a second, but
we get to talk about a bunch of books.
A bunch of books.
Yes,
but first, I want to
busy.
introduce everybody to Jamie McLennan.
Yes.
And he is my
You're afraid
printer.
to raise your hand too.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Jamie needs the handheld mic, if you don't mind.
Yes.
He's supposed to have the handheld mic.
Or
If we could
just needs to have his handheld.
Yeah, well, for right now, we'll just talk. So Jamie is here as my printer panel, and this is technically Printers Row, and we are going to start bringing more printers into the panels to ask questions. But Jamie does have some questions for you.
Yes.
So ask away, and then we'll start
here's
talking.
Here's a microphone coming.
Perfect.
Yes.
And then we'll start talking about the books, which
Yes.
are this gentleman right here. Thank you so much, Jamie, and thank you so much for coming and joining us.
She said that person. That's not the gentleman.
That's him.
It's the
No, that's
printers,
him.
not gentlemen.
Yes.
No.
Go ahead, Jamie.
He is not laughing at a single thing I
No,
say.
Dwight is dry.
I think so.
Jamie, go ahead.
As Dr. Joe said, I believe that,
Louder.
specialty is good, definitely. That's definitely helps me when I go out. But most of the web-based people you're saying, people that don't understand print, as long as you reach out to them and talk to them, that seems to help. And because they don't know about bleeds or
Can you
stuff like
guys
that.
hear Jamie
Right.
back there? Put the mic closer.
Yes.
Closer.
Sorry, that better?
Perfect. Yeah.
So my question was, how do you find yourself reaching out to these people that don't understand print? What topics do you start with?
It's not talking to them about anything mechanical or specifications. It's nothing like that at all. It's finding out the kinds of jobs that they have, not jobs, the tasks that they have before them in terms of finding customers, finding prospects, retention, the circumstances of their target audience, where they are, how to reach them. I mean, it's very often that it's not a print job that will be handed out. It's the management of an event. Many printers have been very happy with the event businesses that they have created for themselves, both in terms of promotion, managing the email marketing, managing the lists, and also handling registration on the day of the event, all of the signage, all of the follow-up after it. So think in a larger perspective than anything related to a print specification.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Does anyone else have a question for Dr. Joe? Oh, Eric. Eric Holdo, Konica Minolta.
Yes. You made the point of the post office sort of not doing us any good, and yes, you'll be promoting that book in our booth.
Yes.
He's going to be promoting in 2 minutes.
Yes, in 2 minutes.
So that
But-
you'll know how long you can talk.
That's right.
Yes.
So the question I have though is with the post office.
Yes.
One thing that we're seeing that we're actually liking is embellishments are now earning discounts. in the direct mail side of things. Anything from dimensional and foil to QR codes. There are some significant discount programs available.
Yes.
And so I was curious about your thought on that, given the fact that yes, there have been challenges with post office and rates and things like that, but they are also trying to promote more print, which means more mail.
Not necessarily, but here's my biggest problem with the post office, and it comes with the way they're regulated. They can't innovate. You know, if you go through the marketing mix, product, they can't create new products. Price, they can't change their price. Promotion, after the debacle with Lance Armstrong and steroids and stuff, they can't really promote themselves. And what's the other one? Oh, place, right? They're forced to keep locations open that are not economically viable, which means that they can't open new locations that would make more sense. So there's not a single part of the marketing mix that they can make a decision about or take an action about that would make them more relevant to the marketplace. And then when you're in a position where computer prices go down 7% per year, right? Cellular and wireless communications go down somewhere around 5% per year, and you have postal prices going up more than the rate of inflation, you're creating this gap, and that gap is now 15 years old. That's a very, very big gap in prices, and that's one of the reasons they have problems with volume. They do not offer any kind of pricing that would stimulate the demand, especially from small businesses. You saw in the news about the deals that they offered Amazon for packaging. If you're a big customer, you can get cooperation from the Postal Service. But if it's to create new marketplaces, everything's in their way, and they help put them there. It's very, very disappointing in that regard. So unless you have the computer and data management structure behind any kind of direct mail process where customers can mitigate those costs and perhaps achieve a better total cost of their mailings, it's not a good time for just plain old regular direct mail, unfortunately. But take advantage of those discounts you brought up as you mentioned. Now, I used up a lot of time to make sure you didn't ask me another question.
Well, actually, it's a perfect segue into the third wave because, you know, one of the discussion points in there is related to, you know, maximizing how printers get to still their market share of the print spend in that marketing mix. And one of the ways that would make a direct mail piece more valuable is if it had legs, so to speak. The print was the trigger, and it was worth that spend, that postage spend, but it brought you to something else, something bigger, some sort of engagement that was more relevant. But
or the print was the follow-up to the non-respondents to all of the digital media.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So you've already exhausted the lower cost alternatives. Now you go at the better parts of the market with other ways to attempt to engage them in those other media.
I was at the Outlook conference this morning, and Julie Schaefer.
Wait a second, you said you were up at the Outlook conference this morning. That means you were awake.
I was awake.
You were awake at the.
And Julie Schaefer, and I don't remember who she was talking with, but they said that one of the biggest problems, like the digital marketers, the digital commerce companies have, is these left items in the shopping cart.
Yes.
And I was with Domtar Paper at my Project Peacock thing, and they had an example from West Elm, which was a postcard that sent you everything you left in your shopping cart in a postcard and said, "Don't forget about us." And their response for people going back on the site and buying things was activated through a piece of print, but it was triggered by the digital that triggered the print. So, but I don't, that's maybe a secondary conversation. I really do want you to talk about your book.
Okay.
Your
books. But your comment there, anything that ties into the transactional flow, that's very, very big difference than the way we sold print before. That deals with all the marketing analytics that now flow into these communicators. It's a fascinating part of the market.
Well,
anyways.
it's more about like like what you were saying, finding these hidden opportunities, and these hidden opportunities with these digital companies really are in how do you help them seal the deal on that sale, because there are people. I mean, I know I have items in my Amazon cart that I put in, I take out, I put in, I take out. but if they would start sending me offers on them,
Yes.
or I mean, if you, I think if you don't do AdWords the first time, they come back and they give you like another 5% discount, and then
Right.
they give you another 5%. But nobody is really communicating like that, and there's a big opportunity with print in that space for the people with the digital knowledge and the right demographic that can go in there and have the right conversations, not just about put it on paper, put it on paper.
Right, and that's
All right, but
obvious.
now I'm you.
Yeah,
now I'm
you
Dr.
did
Joe.
it.
Okay, Dr. Joe.
You're going to be writing my column yet, I can
You
tell.
have three, your new book is The Third Wave, which I want you to talk about, and then we'll talk about the one that's being printed, and kind of just talk about all your books. They're all great.
Okay. Some of you know Renewing the Printing Industry, written over 10 years ago, right? We're going to give these away. So
Oh yes, we're
you
going to
can
give them
this
away.
one. You can give that away. And then
You get a book.
Most,
You get a book.
Most
You get a
everybody
book.
knows Disrupting the Future, which might be the most downloaded graphic arts book ever, which is kind of cool. And this is a hard copy, of course. But this was a really important book for us, but I believe for the industry. Any of you have any of you read this? Now that I did that big build-up, Mike Fischera has.
Oh,
not read it.
we got a bunch of people who read it. Look
Who
at
read
you.
it? Good.
Look, the FedEx guy read it. Yay!
The funniest thing was a CEO stopped me one time and said, I was forced to read your book. And I said, why? How? And he says, because the CEO of our China subsidiary demanded that everybody in the U.S. read it. And I said, wow, that's pretty cool. So anyways.
Can they demand everybody goes to visit PrintMediaCentr, please?
They certainly can. I'll
Thank
find
you.
that CEO if
Thank
he's
you.
on the floor right now.
Thank you, China.
But this book, The Third Wave, right? The first wave was the internet, 1998. The second wave was social media and tablets and smartphones, 2008. And I believe that based on printing shipments at the end of last year, we are in the middle of another wave, and this one could be pretty traumatic. We have a lot smarter printing companies today because the other ones failed in the other waves. But this book, this is a special edition. It is at HP, and the reason it's special, it integrates their link technology. You download link technology before you open the book, and you use it to just take a picture of the book. Inside this image is an invisible watermark, which goes to a recording of me and Richard Romano talking about the book. Any place where you see blue printing in here is another invisible watermark that you just point your phone or your tablet at, and it'll bring you to a website about that particular topic, or play a video, or play some kind of audio file. We wrote this book from the first keystroke with link technology in mind, as opposed to this book. Some of you have heard of Unsquaring the Wheel, a brand new nonprofit organization that I'm involved with about industry education. But when HP distributed this book last year, this book was already written. So only the pages that they had inserted, talking about their product, had the link. This has it all the way throughout. So I'm signing this book at 4 o'clock, and most every day at 4 o'clock at the HP booth. If you go there right now, you can still get a copy, but they printed the signatures. They used blue. So, but it's a very good book. You've got a preview of it because I sent you the PDF.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then after Disrupting the Future was This Point Forward, which complains about most printing companies doing their budgeting and long-term planning using their rear view mirror as opposed to looking forward. One of the worst things that you can do in planning strategy for this printing industry, not the old one, for this printing industry is looking at the past. So having that 5-year, 10-year focus on what kind of industry are we going to be and what kind of company do we need to be, those are the discussions that you need to have. Let the accountants do the trend stuff. But if you really want to get involved in strategy, don't use the rear view mirror. That's why we called the book This Point Forward. We also had, this book was this was our fun book about sales called Getting Business. It's mainly out of date, but it's still fun. And this book is at Konica Minolta. Slava Appel, some of you know Slava, who is a technologist in the industry. You may know him for his web-to-print software. We got involved in a startup company that helps with cloud migration for printing organizations. So we wrote a book, ghosted by Richard Romano, about cloud production. And Konica is printing this book, giving it away at no charge. Konica has made big investments in cloud technology as corporately over this past year. And one of the other reasons they're using, other than supporting the cloud, is they're showing it with different kinds of finishing technologies on it. So you see the foil finishing. I'm from New York, so we know this is furl. Right? So I'm not from New York anymore.
No, you're not.
But that's foil, and they've got some other very special tactile features in here with some nice glossy coatings and embossing and things. So get the book. They're printing these live on the show floor.
Eric, here, go ahead, take the microphone. Konica just happens to be sitting here, so.
Well, I'm supporting the Printerverse.
Yay, love it.
Yes, it's printed on our devices, so that can either be printed on our Meteor system, which is toner and foil. And it can also be finished on our jet varnish systems, which is UV coat, UV inkjetted, and foil. Foil is attracted to the UV, and it's a heat set foil. And then you can run it back through, and you can do dimensional UV, all in the same device, no changeovers. So I can create tactile finishes up to 200 microns high, all in it.
Okay, so Dr. Joe.
And it's all digital.
Yes.
There's no.
And at 2:30, I'm over at the Konica booth signing copies of this book. I'm there every day, and Slava's going to be there. And we also have a cloud migration expert, Scott Prince, who's going to be there for Monday and Tuesday, helping. So if you got questions about cloud, ask Scott and Slava. I'm going to be over there very often as well.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up.
No.
I'm sorry. You can come back anytime you want.
Okay.
What I would like you to do is look into the camera and tell everybody at all the printers at home what 3 technologies they must invest in next. End of story.
Oh gosh, no.
Yes. 3 that they must. Well, I like to make people stick on things.
Part of the problem with the question is do investing in the technology. No.
Okay.
Invest in the strategy.
Okay.
Invest in learning about your customers. Invest in learning about the overall marketplace. I get really frustrated when I go to those American Marketing Association meetings and I'll talk to a printer. Yeah, I went, I didn't get any orders. What? Didn't get any orders? No, you're supposed to be learning about the business there. We have a panel that they run every year, a CMO from a profit-making corporation, a nonprofit, a small business, and an educational institution. And you have these CMOs spilling their guts about their problems, their plans for the future, and all that. That's valuable information that teaches you the kinds of needs that the marketplace has. So no, don't buy the technology unless you have a plan.
Okay, so then perhaps that question should be the types of personnel that the printers need to be attracting to their business for this new model.
Many printers have told me, and it breaks my heart to say this, that they have been more successful hiring outside of the industry, especially in sales and marketing. Now, some of that's understandable because
kind of makes sense.
If you're focused on the insurance business, let's say, hiring someone who's worked in a marketing and communications department in the insurance industry, you're automatically hiring knowledge of their problems, knowledge of the companies, knowledge of the customer bases. You're already hiring somebody who thinks from not just an application standpoint, but from a needs standpoint. So that's very, very helpful. But another thing I was involved in, we need to get more and more young people involved in our industry. Now everybody says, oh, that's just an age thing. No, it's not just an age thing when you have companies hiring computer programmers for the first time. So I'm going to reach behind me and get something out of my, my bag here. Here we go. I didn't know, you were silly. I didn't know I was doing this.
No, well, that's the whole point of the Printerverse. No one ever knows what's going to happen.
Last year, Printing and Graphics Scholarship Foundation had a poster, and I wrote about it, and I said I didn't like the poster. Okay? Well, I'm prone to do this because I like being able to look at myself in the mirror in the morning and say, okay, you did okay. So I get a comment from John Berthelsen. Some of you know John,
Yes.
who is the formal, not ex, but like they threw him out, the
Right.
retired CEO of Suttle Strauss, and he's also the VP of Development for PGSF. So he sent me a note saying, don't complain unless you're going to get involved. I later came to know that John was the one most involved in the poster I didn't like. So kudos to him for putting together a panel that involved me, Dr. Erica Walker from Clemson University, who's just absolutely terrific, Gina Danner, who's the CEO of NextPage in Kansas City, and a couple of other folks, and we talked about young people and our industry. And instead of the panel filled with data about how many businesses are in the commercial lithographic industry, we now have this poster which links to Snapchat, which shows somebody's career, not necessarily tied to graphic arts, where you can go through and see all the different jobs that are in a graphic arts organization. And there's also a new career brochure. You can download these and use them in your own company, in your own community, from the PSGF site, I think PGSF site starting tomorrow. But at 2 o'clock, way in the back, there's an area where there are presentations. At 2 o'clock tomorrow, you're going to hear all of us, John, myself, Erica, Gina, and a scholarship recipient, talk about hiring young people in the industry and what their experiences are and how we can cultivate a greater interest instead of talking to people about, oh, get into the commercial lithographic business.
Right.
Oh yeah, right. No, we have such a demand for so many different positions in our industry and we have such an interesting story to tell.
I think so. And you've done a wonderful job. We're done.
One more minute.
Okay, go.
Here's an example. How many of you are printers? Raise your hands. Don't be shy.
Don't
it's
be
a printing
shy.
show.
What were
You
the
can raise
printers
your
in the
hand.
audience? There we go.
How many
Morton.
of you do in-kind contributions for nonprofit organizations and causes in your communities? Raise your hands.
Good for you.
Okay? Now, we always hear about millennials wanting to make and have a big effect on their communities and on the world. Yet we keep this secret, that you can work for a printing company and get more deeply involved in your community because of the things that company does, but we never tell anybody that we are involved in our communities. That's a very, very good way of getting more and more young people involved in our companies. So.
Very good. Well, Dr. Joe, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
You're going to give these away?
Yes, we'll give them away after we'll
No,
give
don't you
them
want somebody
secretly.
to come up when you do an award and a picture?
We need to clear the stage because MemJet's coming up for an event.
Okay.
But what we're going to, I just want to thank you. You'll be in the HP booth signing booth.
4 o'clock and at 2:30 I'm at Konica.
And you're in the
2:30,
Konica
I'm heading
booth.
right over there
and,
now.
you can find Dr. Joe always at whattheythink.com. Or in my Skype feed, quite frankly.
Yes.
If you really want to get to him, I can find him on Skype. But Dr. Joe, thank you
you
so
very
much.
much.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll be back at 2:30 with MemJets having a special event
If
here.
anybody wants a poster,